Yep.
Dr. Evan William is joining us today, and we're going to talk briefly about HIPAA, and mainly because what we have found over the course of time is we have a lot of doctors who set up their policies either when they first got into practice or when HIPAA first really became a thing, right? So back in 2004, they'd set up their policies and then they stick them on a shelf, and that's really where they've resided ever since. So Dr. Evan, you've got Dr. Anderson joining you tomorrow. You're going to be talking a little bit about HIPAA. What are some of the highlights that you're going to be covering?
It's important for doctors to know that HIPAA is an ongoing process. It's not collecting dust on the shelf. It's something we have to be aware of at all times. We have to monitor it and show that we've done so. One, I want the doctors to leave having a clear idea of what to do next, and that's really important. I also want them to understand why or what should motivate them to work on HIPAA. And one of those is there are penalties and there's fines and such, and those are unpleasant. But beyond that, there's practical day-to-day benefits to being HIPAA compliant. And I am not exempt from recognizing that HIPAA is just not an exciting topic. You hear it and you just shut down. But there's actually pieces of HIPAA that can help protect your bottom line. And doctors have to recognize that there are not just risks for government rules you have to follow, but we see in the marketplace all the time that healthcare is at risk for attacks and breaches, and security in terms of our technology is so huge and so important. Doctors can take steps and be compliant with the HIPAA rules, but also, aside from HIPAA, just be protecting their practice and their patients if they understand a few of these things and implement some of these steps.
Dr. William, it's interesting. I just saw a study. In fact, we were just talking about it before we jumped on to record. I just saw a study that in 2020, in 2023, that the healthcare sector was the number one sector that was impacted by ransomware and cyber attacks. Interestingly, it was actually they had 8 times more cyber incidences than the communications industry had. So sometimes we think that, oh, no, we're small. So we have this security by obscurity. And the reality is that we just need to be prepared. So no fear factor here, just more of preparing, right?
Right. If I was a cyber criminal, I would look at the small practices. I think that they're the ones more likely to have weak practices in place. And so I'm not a cyber criminal, for the record, but if I was, that may be where I would go, because I think I'd be more likely to find vulnerabilities and be able to find things I could exploit. I think healthcare is one of the bigger targets simply because there's so many points of communication with the insurers and with the clinics and the clearinghouses, and there's areas of vulnerability. And so we just have to figure out what they are and build protections, and be ready for whatever comes out.
One of the other things I think sometimes that we miss is that reminder that we're supposed to regularly be training within our practices, right? So training staff is another key element. I assume you all will be talking about that tomorrow as well.
For sure. See, training is actually not that hard. There's lots of resources out there. So we'll make sure the audience knows where to go find it. But ultimately, they need to understand the basics of the rules that they need to be following so that they don't violate anything. And also, again, so your patients are happy and they feel like they're safe working with your clinic from a privacy standpoint. So we'll make sure that there are lots of ideas on how to do training, and make sure you know how it's compliant and what kind of resources you have. There's lots of great options out there, and it doesn't have to be boring. It can be relevant and useful. And again, it can protect your bottom line.
Now, as you're going to be going through your training tomorrow, are you going to layer in some information for, at least for ICS members that have access to Statusfi, the compliance dashboard on basically how to track that and ensure that they're staying compliant and checking the right boxes, if you will?
And you know what? ICS members already have this head start. They have this leg up with this Statusfi tool. We'll look at it a little bit and show you how you can use it to make sure you've done everything you need to do. And it's so easy to see in the interface, your percentage of completion. So you just work towards that 100% is the goal, but you don't have to swallow it all at once. You can do a couple of check boxes here and there, get a few things done, and know that you're making progress and doing a good faith effort. And you have this great tool already with Statusfi. So they have this, like I said, this advantage to track. what's going on.
Well, doctor, it's thank you. It's great having you part of Practice Inc. It's great to have you part of the Illinois Chiropractic Society family. But we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. But hopefully, everybody takes away from our little conversation. It's more than even just your education tomorrow. It's that reminder that that HIPAA compliance is actually important for your practice and for you. And we just want to give you the tools to be able to get from point A, where we are today, to point B, which is that compliance, that full compliance for your practice.
One more little plug for the presentation itself. HIPAA, again, is a bit of a snoozer on its own, but with myself and Dr. Anderson, we're going to make it kind of fun. We got some fun little surprises. Here, I'll just give you guys one hint. Wigs. There's going to be wigs involved. So just come, have a good time, learn what you need to learn. I promise we'll make it fun and interesting.
Fantastic. Thanks, Doc. And we'll catch you next week.
Thank you.